now has the leeway to decide his own fate. So that is the first thing to know. Then secondly, that the state governors do not have the authority to dissolve chairpersons at the local government level. That is the second thing to note about the judgment. Unlike what has been the case, a governor can wake up one morning and dissolve the council. Then thirdly, that there will be a democratic election at the grassroots. At any council where there is no democratically elected chairperson, will not receive the federal allocation, the monthly federal allocation. So this is the very significant event in Nigeria. So that is why we are going to discuss what will be the effect, the immediate effect, long-term effect, then the three cases, because it is a complex situation. It's not as simple as it is on the surface. So we're going to let us know the three Supreme Court judgment, the implications for grassroots people, implications for the state government, implications for Nigeria as a whole. So that's what we're going to be talking about. I hope you are now abreast. You now have an idea of today's discussion, sir. So, but let me ask you, in your own assessment, do you think that the Supreme Court judgment is a symbolic event or a symbolic aspect just to dispel the doubt of local government autonomy, to accentuate that feeling, emotional feeling that yes, government is now theoretically autonomous or independent? Or do you think that this judgment will translate into tangible developmental substances at the grassroots level? So just briefly, tell me, what is your assessment of this and how do you feel about
it? Thank you, moderator. Like I introduced myself, that my name is Godson O. Moneke. In your introduction, you refer to that judgment as a watershed. I cannot agree more with you. You see, for a very long time, local government, which is supposed to be the third tier of government, have been marginalized, have been traumatized, have been rendered inactive because of the actions of governors. Governors behave as if when you talk of autocracy, governors are the true autocrats. And the presidents you see, you talk of the president. Most presidents appear to be afraid of governors because the governors own the people and they can make and unmake most presidents. If you look at Obasanjo, as tough as people thought he was afraid of governors, no matter his body language, because the governors almost succeeded in not giving him second term. So he's afraid of governors. That's why, if I give my state as an example, I'm from Anambra State. You find that there have been no, apart from the first administration of Governor Mbaloju late, there have been no local government election. What Peter Obi did when he was about to go was just a caricature. Because in some of the local governments, especially Nnewi North, where his party did not win, he canceled the election. So I'm very happy for what the Supreme Court has done. You see, most presidents I will not say complicity, but they looked helpless. They could not do anything. And they saw that it was bad. They knew that it was bad. What was being done was bad. It's anti-development. But they could not do anything. They looked helpless. I remember I wrote to one minister, a woman, telling that I read in the Constitution where they said the system of local government shall be democratically done. I referred the minister to that. I said, then why are you allowing caretaker committees? Why are you giving money to local governments that are not elected? She just ignored me. And she didn't do anything about that. She continued giving them money. Of course, the governors were using the local government money as their pocket money. They use them there and they embezzle the money. That's why if you look at our economy, you see dollar rate is rising. Once there is allocation, most of you don't know. What different? Once there is allocation, the whole thing rises because there's so much money. They use it to buy anything. If you go to any government house, governors treat foreign currency as more than they treat Nigerian currency because they have it. There's nothing. So I must commend President Bola Tinubu because he did the greatest thing to Nigerians, where other presidents before him failed. But he was bold enough, like a lion, and he was able to get this thing. And also, he's a minister for Attorney General. That's a minister for Justice. I commend the two of them. Of course, the Supreme Court cannot do anything unless you bring a matter to them. And when the thing was brought, they handled it decisively. This thing was brought in May. So it took them less than 2 months to give you a decision on it. Because it's straightforward. The concern is on their side. So I'm very happy that this thing, and for once, maybe we'll start witnessing development because when you give the local government money, then let's see what happens. And of course, these other people, let's see how they will eat the money that was, the state governors. Let's see whether they will now eat the money that is given as state allocation. We're going to watch them. So that is all. So to that extent, I believe that the judgment that we had is actually good for Nigeria.
All right. You talked about President Obasanjo being afraid of some governor during his administration. Now, let me take you back a little bit. You know that the present leader, President Tinubu, one may say that not surprised at his actions because during his time as governor of Lagos State, he attempted to create about 37 local council development areas. And that was the time of President Obasanjo. And you know, Obasanjo opposed that movement. Despite that, Tinubu sustained those areas. But they went to court. They went to court and the court said that states had the right to create local government, but with the approval of the National Assembly. So Governor Tinubu retained those local council areas. But what happened was that President Obasanjo withheld the allocation of Lagos throughout Tinubu's tenure as governor. So maybe that is what is playing out now. Tinubu wants to realize the potential, what he had always thought had in mind. So Tinubu is it is not surprising what he has done. So, what do you think about that?
Yes, like I said, Obasanjo was afraid of governors. You see, his fight with Tinubu, but because of the disgrace he had in his first term, where he lost everything in Southwest. So, and of course, he was able to win all back, except Lagos, because of Tinubu. So he wanted to crush Tinubu using the federal might, using this issue that the system of local government shall be by election, and this other one by democracy and some other things. Because even at that time, let me tell you, in Ebonyi State, when Ebu was governor, he created the local government, local development council. It was there. Go and check your records, and they're still existing. And many other states created local development council, but he just picked on Lagos and decided to, to use an excuse to do a personal fight against Tinubu, because Tinubu did not allow him to have his way of what he planned against the Southwest because of the disgrace. Because he lost everywhere in Southwest, not with no exception. So in the second time, he felt that he would make sure he gained all of them. But he did not succeed because Tinubu stopped him in Lagos. So you should look at the background of why he did what he did. It was a personal fight against Tinubu. But this time, let me say one thing, that Tinubu has always been daring. You may look at him as this, but he's the most strategic thinker and political juggernaut that you see in this country. He thinks far, far ahead. When others are looking this way, he's always ahead of whoever he's his opponent. That's why Obasanjo could not beat him, because Tinubu was far ahead of him. He could not. But the others that were taking Obasanjo for his word, Obasanjo dealt with them like military men would deal with people. They used the coin. Of course, they are masters of strategic warfare. And of course, he beat them. So I want you to look at it on that ground. Tinubu did this, and that is what the Constitution says. Leave the local governments. When you talk of development, development should be a holistic development. That is what is meant. And you cannot achieve holistic development when you leave the local governments out. A chain is as weak as strong as its weakest link. So if you don't develop local governments, as the states have done, you are bound to see a lot of potholes. You see a lot of the local governments cannot discharge their functions, and these are given to them by the Constitution and are funded. But the states, using the joint account and the fact that they are giving money irrespective of whether there's election or not, use it to change the local government. I think what the government should be doing after this one is to go to the governors, both present and this, each of them that use caretaker committees. Let them vomit all the local government money they stole, or did them properly. Because we cannot allow this. If people, the reason Nigeria is going down, people do a lot of things with impunity and get away with it. If people know that crime does not pay, no matter how long, of course, there's no statute or limitation. in criminal act. So if people know that whatever crime they commit, they'll be asked to come and account one day, no matter how long it takes. They'll be more careful in what they do. So I want you to.
Right, I've gotten your point. But now that this has happened, very clear that local governments now have the full autonomy in terms of finance. Now, let me ask you this. What will be the expectations of the people in the local community regarding this judgment? What will they expect from now onward in terms of developmental successes, projects, infrastructure at the grassroots? Briefly.
Well, the expectations will be good governance. There will be infrastructural development. There will be most of the entire roads, they will do them. Primary healthcare, primary education, and so many things. Even water, boreholes, and other things. They have a lot to do. The market, other things. There are things they have to do in terms of bringing development closer to the people. But first of all, we must enforce the judgments of the Supreme Court. Because I've seen some governors, if you read their body language, the body language is trying to exploit and resist what is happening. You saw the statement by former Governor Ibori yesterday. He was talking of the same constitution provided for state local government judge account. And so what are you going to do? Because the governors know that it's difficult to amend the current constitution as it is now, because the thing will go to the state. And the states, they are like the Lord of Mammon. You cannot get the required signature, approval to amend the constitution with them. They forgot that they endorse the doctrine on necessity. They also know that the Supreme Court is a court of policy. That if there is the law says that the system of local government shall be by democracy and by election. Now, it means then that some of the things that appear contradictory appear to slow down the realization of that objective. The Supreme Court can decide on that and smoothing the path. That's exactly what they have done. And I thank those wise men at the Supreme Court, at the highest bench in the land, for doing what is good for this country.
All right. Let's acknowledge the presence of architect Okelo Maduki here. Okelo Maduki. You're welcome to this program. Can you hear me? Mr. Okelo?
Ask him to mute his speaker.
Mr. Okelo, could you please mute your audio, please? Unmute your audio so you can hear me. All right, while that is going on.
Yeah. Can you hear me? You can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Oh, okay. I'm glad to be here.
Can you introduce yourself, Prof? Introduce yourself, Prof.
Well, you've already introduced me. My name is Architect Okelo Madukife. I'm Anambra State Publicity Secretary of All Progressive Congress, APC.
Could you put on your camera, please?
That camera is on.
All right.
There you are.
I can see you now. So
Okay.
we're discussing about the Supreme Court judgment recently, yesterday precisely. So when you heard that, how did you feel about it? You think
Oh,
it
thank
is
you.
all right?
Yeah, thank you very much. Like many people who have heard it and who are following, I felt highly elated because it is a struggle that we've been onto for a good number of years. And at every point in time, it proved tough to even get the people around us to align to what has been guaranteed by the Constitution. I need to point out clearly that in real terms, nothing new happened yesterday except the will to translate it into an order.
There is a
Everything
whole
that the
back,
Supreme Court.
excuse me, sir. There is a whole back of noise. I don't know where it is coming from. Mr. Moneke, do you have your audio on?
Certainly not in this my quiet location.
Continue, please.
Hello.
Continue.
Okay,
continue.
It's better now. The only new thing that happened yesterday is the translation of what the Constitution has already guaranteed into a clear order. Because before yesterday, there were already about 8 judgments of the Supreme Court that brought by individuals or organizations that clearly stated that the governors have no right to dissolve local government executive. They had no right to appoint caretaker committees, but they were not being obeyed. The one that is new is a remission of finances at the level of the Supreme Court, because the Buhari government made a decision to remit funds directly, and it became a source of conflict from the same governors. But this is the first time we're getting a clear Supreme Court judgment. And now what it means to us is that democracy is about to be complete. We fought for democracy, but it stopped at a certain level. Those who are supposed to be the beneficiaries of democracy now turned out to be the ones stopping others from enjoying democracy. And because every politics is local, I like to give an example with my own state. Each time there is a governorship election, you find people from all sorts of fields, newcomers to public office.
Sorry, Mr. Amadutife, please, we can't see your face properly. Just move backwards a bit. Better now. Continue.
Is it better?
Much better. Continue.
Okay. All right. So each time you have all sorts of people who are untested. But what we forget is that if you have a governor, the office of a governor, it's a high office. Now, those who are all that is going to change, because any government or governor that insists on sustaining illegality will do so at their own cost. What we expect is that people will aspire for lower positions, government will be closer to the people, development will be faster, and unbeknownst to us, there will now be a full federation at work, because those who are quick to point finger that economy is bad, point at the federal government, or in some cases they point at the state government, are not doing it right. The local government is the engine room of development. The local government, most of the time, is in charge of agri extension. That's where we need to pay a lot of attention. So I felt very happy. It was the climax of a struggle, and it was well received, because we had gone to court to get a judgment that the election should be conducted in Anambra State, but it was not conducted. So we're very happy. And I'm sure that most people who have understood the judgment are equally very happy.
All right, let me ask you one more question before we turn to our another guest that just joined us now. I'm talking to you, Mr. Madukife. Now,
Yes,
the
please.
Nigerian Constitution recognizes 3 tiers of government: the federal government, the state government, and the local government.
Yeah.
But the same Constitution acknowledges only 2 legislative parts: the exclusive and the concurrent lists. So some experts will say that even though the local governments are now financially independent, some laws on the state legislature will still affect the administration of local governments. What's your take on that?
I don't think there's any conflict there, and I don't think there's a problem either. It is incorrect to say that the Constitution recognizes 2 or did you say 3 tiers of? Yes, the Constitution recognizes government. 3 tiers of government.
Yeah.
Fine. But on the list that you talked about, it also recognizes three levels of legislation. The only thing is that having donated the powers to set up the local government administration, the system of enthronement, the mode of elections, and how the government should be formed to the state government, which is the correct thing to do in a federation. It will not go above it to begin to talk about the third one, which is the residual list. So, it naturally develops itself where it exists. For instance, Lagos State has been conducting local government elections since 1999. And gradually they have developed their own residual list, which is where the local government pays attention. And that happens at the level of the state. So what we have is a balanced federation that we are tending towards for those who understand it. But for those who are amassing more powers than they really deserve, they may not immediately understand it, but the generations ahead would. So yes, the delineation of functions as far as local government is concerned happens at the state level. It is not something that Abuja will begin to say this local government should legislate on this. It is the states themselves.
All right, we appreciate your contribution. Let's recognize the presence of another guest by name Chief Ifeanyi Chukwuokonkwo Onwanobi. You are welcome, sir, on this program. Chief, you're welcome. Can you hear me? Chief, can you hear me? Unmute yourself if you can't hear me. Unmute your audio. Oh, I think it's still a problem there. All right. Let me go back to you, Mr. Moneke Godson. Now, most states have what we call Ministry of Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs. Anambra State has it also. And some people believe that this ministry has been used by state governments to control the monarchs in their states. For example, what happened in January this year, when Soludo suspended about 3 monarchs. I think Igwedemi and Ezine of Neni, and about 2 others, on the basis that they did not get a clearance from the Ministry of Local Government and Chieftaincy Affairs, Anambra State, before conferring chieftaincy titles on Senator Ifeanyi. So many believe it is politically motivated. So I want to ask you now, what will this judgment mean for that ministry? Is there any effect it will have on ministry like this? Any effect at all? I can't hear you. We can't hear you, sir. Unmute yourself. Unmute your audio. Can't hear you.
Yeah. The point is this. Like I said, I wrote at that time, the Anambra State governor was wrong in singling out Ifeanyi Ubah for vilification. But that does not, of course, Ifeanyi Ubah deserved the recognition he got because he's doing more than somebody in government. I mean, somebody in the state government is doing so much in terms of in the places where he is represented, much more than senators before him. Of course, you know the political differences between him and the governor. So the governor will want to stretch his hand further. I'm opposed to the governor in doing that, but that does not suggest that the current dispensation will mean that the local governments will not be controlled or monitored. It's not, they can't be left on their own. You know, you will notice that governors have immunity, but local government chairmen do not have immunity. So, and again, so you expect that the bond between the local governments and the state is more than what you have, is greater than what you have between the state and federal. That being the case, I do not expect that the state governors will not allow the local government to function. They are going to function and do their work, the other one. But again, you made mention of monarchs. Monarchs. I think it's a malapropism. You know, they call it this thing. You use words in the wrong context. We don't have monarchs in Nigeria. Monarchy as a form of government is like you have in Britain, where a monarch, the monarch performs some state functions. What you have are traditional rulers. Because if you say some, or in Saudi Arabia, the leader of that district is a monarch. That's why for now, the Saudi Arabia is run by the crown prince, more or less. The president, the leader of Saudi Arabia is the monarch. So what we have in Nigeria are traditional rulers. I'm sure if you look at the constitution, you never see mention of monarch there. People are just using the word monarch.
So what is the difference between them?
Doesn't have power to do anything. Well, Nigeria is a constitutional democracy. It's a republic. It's a federation with the states at the federation federating units. So what we have is traditional rulers. They are not monarchs, because monarchy is a form of government.
All right. So you are saying that the Supreme Court judgment will not have any effect on those ministries created at the state level to control the traditional rulers, as you call them. You mean there any form of effect at all?
No. These traditional rulers are still being paid by the state government. And he who pays the piper dictates the tune. So, however they are done, I believe that the traditional rulers, the state government will still have oversight on the local government. But the Supreme Court judgment has said, give them the money you're having oversight doesn't warrant you collecting their money and putting in your pocket. This is the money that is their own. Just like get your own. Allow the local governments to do this. It's not their own. It's for them to do their work, and that's all. So I do not believe that state governments the judgment will have the survey is going to affect that ministry. It's not going to affect it. They're still in. Yes.
All right. Carry on. I appreciate your contribution. If Chief Onwa is much ready now with his audio, let's have him. Chief Onwa Nodi, are you there? Can you hear me? Chief, if I you Nodi.
He has not muted his audio.
All right. Okay, let's go on. Okay, let me come back to Mr. Madukife.
Yes, please.
Now, the Supreme Court judgment. Chief Ipayu, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you.
All right. Welcome to the program. Chief Ipayu Okonkwo, you're welcome. I believe you know already the topic of the discussion. But let me ask you this question straight away. The Supreme Court judgment simply means that, of course, the Supreme Court has a legislative function. By the virtue of this judgment, it has a legislative function. And its decision is final, it's law. And it simply means that Section 162, subsection 6 of the Constitution has been rendered null and void. And that section says that the account in which the national allocation will be moving toward will be a joint account. That is, the state and local government will share the same account. That's what the section says. But by the court judgment yesterday, it means that that section of the Constitution has been rendered ipso facto null and void. So do you think that from now onwards, that the lawmakers at the federal level have a lot of work to do in terms of strengthening the successes already made by this judgment yesterday? Chief Okonkwo, we can't hear you. Can you unmute your audio, please? Unmute your audio. We can't hear you. We cannot hear you, Chief Okonkwo.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
Okay, I can hear you now. You can speak up.
Yes, I want to use the opportunity to thank your organization and my participants go to Mr. President for his college, the Honorable Attorney and the team, and those Nigerians who, by virtue of their position, have
The audio has gone off again. Will you unmute your video, please? Okay. All right.
I'm so sorry. So, like I was saying, I was recognizing the contribution of the eminent Jews that is calling, notwithstanding that many Nigerians have lost faith in the judiciary. A lot of people misunderstand this judgment. This judgment is not the finality of the emancipation and opportunity for Nigerians to take back their government. This is only a vista for those men and women who will crusade for the total elimination of corruption in Nigerian political system, and to bring the men and women that will come who seek elective office to say for good governance. I started this battle with the judgment in 2006. It took time. The Attorney General of the Federation intervened and opposed the judgment. It's a federal government judgment that I got a foundation of that triggers what is happening today in Nigeria. My case is pending. I had a judgment which the Honorable Distinguished Learned Jurist confirmed in a unanimous decision that Alagaje, a great man who was ready to application, that made me to go back to court and serve the Honorable Attorney General that agitated their mind for them to go back and seek this interpretation. I don't take credit for it, but it's a war that we must fight. The issue is people are worried about if the money gets to local government, they will steal it again. The action is for Nigerians to come out like SECAP has come to look at these maggots who occupy public offices that stole our money. We demand to account. I am already doing that in Anambra State. Anambra have not conducted local election for over 20 years. And nobody cares. People are running for governor just to continue in the trajectory of corruption. So it is not only for the National Assembly. We will also talk about restructuring Nigeria. But this threshold of this judgment is like an interim intervention to the Marines, to the corruption, to the decline in leadership. So I congratulate the men and women of Nigeria. This judgment is not a finality. It starts and triggers the agitation for good government, and the people must make demand on the system. Nigerians don't make demand. We acquire the PhD in the world, acquire the legal profession and doctorate and the rest of them, and sit and look for El Dorado from who? We need to say that. So this judgment is just an intervention to our corrupt system. So people just say the governor, which governor? All those who have participated in governance from 1999 till then must be brought to book. We must hold them wherever they are to account for our money. This money is to be warehoused because if you don't have a democratically elected local government, you won't have the money. I don't care who else is God. No friend, no foe. The battle is on. Only Wednesday the 17th, my originating summons is before the court. The Supreme Court has spoken. So I don't know what else to say, but Nigerians will take a lead from what I have started and start bringing our elected officials to account. We must make demand. The greatest office is the office of the man who stands up to evil men. It's not to be governor. President Tinubu has created a legacy. I must give him the credit. So, but there is so much work to do. Everybody, including Tinubu, government, we shall all find a way to get everybody to account. How do you develop a country? People are living in Morocco, people are living in Victoria Island, and you tell me, don't worry, you are doing taxation and the rest of them. I'm so sorry, sir. Maybe I'm extending the discussion to an area that I am so aggrieved that Nigerians elite are so laid back. They are all waiting for God to come and intervene. God will not come back. God has given us an opportunity to crusade for what we believe in. So, distinguished gentlemen, I
All right.
thank you.
Chief, we appreciate your contribution so far, but let me move to Mr. Maduki here once more. Can you hear me? Unmute. Unmute your audio. I can't hear you. Unmute your audio.
Yes, you muted me.
Now, in concrete terms, tell me what would be the expectations of the people at the grassroots? What will now they expect from the local government councils and chairmen? Specific things, projects we need to expect in their local community in terms of projects?
Thank you very much.
Just briefly.
There are a few steps to take before you get to that. Can you hear me?
Of course, very clearly.
Okay, very well. So there are a few steps to take before we get to expectation. I want to identify with the analysis given by Chief Ifeanyi Okonkwo on one note, and seize this moment to publicly acknowledge his struggle. We consider him a partner in the sense that APC has been at the center of this struggle for a very long time. Like I said, we started our own active struggle in roughly 2013 when we boycotted the elections because it was being conducted with an imperfect register. And thereafter, when that tenure finished, they refused to conduct another election. So we went to court. And on May 18, 2018, a judgment came that they should conduct local government election. They ignored it. And so on and so forth. So without boring with too much details, we consider Chief Okonkwo our partner. And he has said something very significant I don't want you to overlook. That is, we are dealing with laid-back people. Each time you're making this effort, it's like, let them keep doing it, as if there's a messiah somewhere in the horizon. Or not understanding clearly that it is the people's power that makes the difference. While you are saying that it is wrong to appoint a caretaker committee and insisting publicly that you won't recognize them at occasions as a local government chairman, people are busy scoring after them for one favor or the other. So now, coming directly to your question, which is expectations. The government is not yet there. The Supreme Court has said this is what should be done. Now, what that means is we don't want caretaker committee. They have outlawed it. Now, the people now need an activism in them. And it will happen in different modes for different states. Because even though it is one central constitutional pronouncement, there are different details for each state. And don't forget the laws came from different state assembly. And there are different clauses to explore. Until 2008, we never knew in Anambra State anything called caretaker committee. Until clause 208 was smuggled in. Smuggled because it is one of those passive legislations that you just make, pass it in one day and put it in a closet, and nobody knows about it until you are faced with an election. So, using Anambra State, where I reside currently as an example, the duty is now to go back to this legislation, walking through the Anambra State House of Assembly, to begin to rework those aspects of legislation that have been pronounced illegal. For instance, you can't appoint a caretaker committee. And there are so many other things embedded in local government law. So what the action we expect now is for the people to imbibe the import of this judgment, put pressure on their representative at the state assembly level to reflect those things in the law. Then again, using Anambra State, you need to now face ANSIEF, Anambra State's Independent Electoral Commission. You have to reconstitute the council. It has never had a council, but there are staff being paid with taxpayers' money. You need to reconstitute the council. You need to set a date and a timetable for local government elections. Because what the pronouncement from the Supreme Court means is that you don't come to power except through democratically elected government, which is already guaranteed in Section 7A of the Constitution. But the Supreme Court has given power and force to it. So you now set a date for election. It is when those things are done and you have free and fair elections, which have thrown up the people that you have voted and people who are accountable to you, then you begin to get to expectations. So there are the expectation, the duty, the responsibility is now on the people. For every right, there's a responsibility. There is work to do. If they go to sleep, the people will go to sleep. And at the state level, they can fix an election now for 2030. What happened? Would that be acceptable to the people? It is for them to decide. If they go there now and say, okay, fine, the Supreme Court has paid it. We want to obey the Supreme Court. Our election has been fixed for 2030. Will the people accept it? So there's a lot of work to do first before they begin to lay back, to begin to expect from people. Well, the work now is on people. Pile the pressure to give effect to them to have the power to choose their own government at the local government level. Who can account for them? That is the easiest government to account, because when you are working in the local government system, everybody knows your house. That's the easiest, that's the most difficult place to abuse office, because you will live in the same community. So the key has been opened, but no, we've not entered. The people have a lot of duty to do. The media has a duty to enlighten people on what the import of the judgment is. As we are, perhaps only a few of us in the elite corps will understand exactly what it means. Gradually, people will understand. And of course, there are contrary interests. There are people who have just been appointed caretaker, whatever, last 2 months. To them, it is like you are dreaming. So there will be centrifugal action to buy time. So that's just the kind of dynamics we expect. So the expectation is still ahead, but they have work to do.
Thank you very much. We have gotten your point. Mr. Mwigwe Odenjijinam raised the hand. Please unmute your audio and speak. Give us your thoughts on the recent Supreme Court judgment.
Can you hear me now?
Very loud and clear. Continue.
All right. First of all, let me thank all of you people that have been working on this thing for some time now, because without the effort you people are putting through, we may have not known that these people have been shortchanging the citizens of Nigeria. The question I want to ask, if I may take it from the last explanation the person who left the microphone said now. He said that there's a lot of work to do in case if the government or the governor now or the National Assembly decide to do election for local government in the year 2030. That will it be comfortable to us? The answer, I believe, is no. But the judgment given or the ruling given on this thing by the Supreme Court, did it not cover the tenure a government will be before they do the election for local government? Now that it is clear now that the caretaker committees or appointments are illegal, the election they've not been doing in the past, it's an illegality they've committed. How do we go about that? Because I think that there should be a tenor explained in that Supreme Court ruling. Again, I want to ask, now that that ruling has been given, what will happen to the past years these people have been using this money without, doing an election? Does it mean that it remains an illegal thing they've been doing, and all the money they've collected all these years, how do we get it back? Do we have a right to fight for that money from the people who were in government that has gotten it back? And if that is so, what are you expecting of the local government whose money have been spent illegally without showing anything for it? What do you expect from them? Because I saw in a video clip somewhere, I think in Enugu State, the local government authority or whatever, we are jubilating, dancing that now they've gotten freedom. Now it is now clear that their money that has been used for all these years will be refunded. Please, I want you to throw in more light to it. Once again, let me also thank Chief Ifeanyi Okonkwo. He has been on this thing for long, and I must praise him. He's a very great man. He spoke to us recently, but it wasn't so clear to us that this thing will get to this very point. But now that he has vindicated himself, we all want to join hands to help, to see how we will get all these things back to work. But it's left for you people now to explain to us in this very Zoom meeting how we can go about it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Do I answer right away, or I'll take others? I don't know how you want to do it, moderate.
All right. Mr. Migwe raised a lot of questions here. I don't know if anyone wants to handle his questions. Anyone?
No, he was asking me, but I wanted to know whether we'll deal with that direct or we'll wait for other questions. I don't know. How do
No,
you,
just
go
on.
Okay. I want to thank Odenjinji. He raised a very critical question. Very critical question. I use that as an example to show that there are so many ways that people circumvent what ought to be an order of the court. You could wake up tomorrow and hear you don't have caretaker government, or you don't have transition government anymore, but you have temporary government. You could wake up and hear all sorts of grammar, and you could wake up and hear delay. They give you all sorts of excuses. And so that's why I said it rests on the shoulders of the people. When we talk about activism, you don't have to wait and accumulate anger to the point where you find something like NSAS, and then you begin to destroy property and make mistakes. Or like what is happening in Kenya among the youth, not highly controlled, you make mistakes. You do it installmentally. As far as I can see, and I've illustrated this, if you come to Anambra State, for instance, when the House of Assembly is sitting, the gallery is usually empty. That's not what happened in the First Republic. When the Zeeks of this world, the operas, were in those houses, the gallery is usually full. If you tell your legislator what to do, you go there and make sure he does it. If he's going contrary, he has lost the election, the next election before he starts, because he's going against the mandate of the people. That's the kind of activism we need now. And he also talked about tenure, which is very critical. He talked about tenure. Tenure is covered indirectly to the extent that the 1999 Constitution, as amended, gives the power for the legislation on local government administration to the state houses of assembly. And then the State House of Assembly, Anambra State House of Assembly, has now made Anambra Local Government Law 2000. It is that law that was very seriously amended without due process around 2009, 2008, under Governor Peter Obi, to result in a situation where that they have taken advantage of. So the first thing they will do is to remove that section 208. 208, even though there's a pronouncement in policy, the law has to be amended to remove section 208, which allows you to appoint a caretaker committee. Well, the first time we went to court, the prayer was that that law should be quashed because it's inconsistent with the provisions of the Constitution as stated in section 7. which has now been upheld by the Supreme Court. We won that case at the High Court. A lot of things went at the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court, but now the Supreme Court, in its full complement, has outlawed everything. So what I'm trying to say is that the tenure is covered. So as long as the same constitution that is being upheld by the Supreme Court has given the power to legislate, and that power to legislate has defined the tenure of office. It was 3 years at the onset, including no party election. Halfway through, there was also another amendment that made it 2 years. So we cannot, for purposes of order, we can accept the 2 years. But the last election or local government election that took place in Anambra State was in December 2013. And those who emerged from that election, perfect or imperfect as it was, were sworn in January 2014, meaning that they ought to vacate office by January 2016. By January 2016, they ignored everybody and appointed a caretaker committee. That's when we went to court to say, look, these are candidates submitted, and no other party has submitted candidates. You should declare them elected. And the court stopped short of declaring them elected, but declared that there should be election conducted. That's what they ignored and continue to delay. So the tenure is defined according to the law, which is a subset of the Constitution. That answers his second critical question. The third one is for the people to decide. Usually when an infraction has been committed, there are usually two broad schools of thought. One school will say, no, let's not go back to the past. Let's forgive all that has happened and let us proceed so that there will be no rancor, there will be no punishment, whatever. We'll not go back to the past, we'll go forward. The second school of thought says, no, you must delve back into the past to understand what exactly happened so as to define your future. Between these two broad schools of thought, an active set of people will sit down and decide what they want and table it before their government. But remember, the government that would have the local standard to act on this is the local government itself, whose money has been abused. And to be able to get to that point, you have to have that local government. So it is practical, it is pragmatic to classify this struggle into stages. The first stage is let there be local government. Let there be local government.
All right.
As fast as we can.
Let me acknowledge the presence of Chief Zen Kunle Showumi. Chief Showumi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, yes. Thank you very much.
Right, Chief Showumi is a renowned author of several books, The Vulture and Vulnerable, The Political History of Nigeria since 1945, among others. So you're welcome on this program.
Thank you very much.
So tell me, what, in concrete terms, briefly, just tell me what you think about yesterday's judgment by the court.
Let me first of all say thank you for inviting me to this program. I will see it as a complete freedom to the Nigerians, particularly those at the grassroots level. I'm trying to get to where my face could be shown properly. I don't know if you can see me now. Now, most of the activities of the federal government, most of the time we blame the federal government for most of the things that are not reflecting at the local government level with the grassroots people. The judgment yesterday cleared the road for the federal government not to have any excuse of getting to the people, because the state government seems to be standing like a roadblock towards getting the democracy, the effect of it, to the grassroots people and the villages. I remember in the
I'm from Ogun State. And I was part of how the Local Government Service Commission was created in those days. At least each local government in Ogun State, they had tractors and bulldozers. But today, none of them is having anything because all the fund that could be used to develop all these areas has been taken over by the state government. So the Supreme Court judgment, which was initiated by the current administration by President Tinubu through his Attorney General, is a liberation for our people, so that we don't. But the only problem that we may have, and like I have suggested in some of my writings, is that we don't allow political parties to participate in election in the local government level. If they can run it as independent, everybody comes, you do your job, and if any party thinks you are good enough, they can recruit you to contest election at the state level. But at the local government level, let everybody go and prove themselves the way they can work. So by that, our people will be free. Otherwise, the same governor that we are trying to take the local government away from will still be the chairman of the party at the state level. He will sponsor people to run for election at the local government, and they will still be reporting to him. And before you realize it, you have not solved the problem. They may not get the money directly, but they will control events and activities of the local government from the state government office. That is it for now.
So would you say that corruption will be reduced at the barest minimum if independent candidates were introduced at the local government level?
Yes, it will be reduced because every candidate will be independent of the political party's machinery. People can deal with that candidate if it's corrupt. They can remove him without any political party helping him to be there. He will be judged solely for his own activities, whether he can work hard or do well or not. But when you attach it to the same political party, you have to go through political process. The governor will step in, the chairman of the local government will step in. They influence all their connections. You know what happened? You don't get justice. When the case is taken to court, it will be adjourned for a very long time. But when it's an individual, he has no political party or political string to pull to delay judgment. And besides, everybody in the local government now, they will be answerable to EFCC. The chairman of the local government does not have immunity, like the governor. You understand? So he can be arrested. If he's corrupt, anything is levied against him, the EFCC can come and get him and take him away. EFCC cannot get the governor. That's why they have to postpone everything about it to the end of his term. Look at what happened with Governor Yahaya Bello now. The case went to court. They adjourned it, and you may not hear anything for the next 6, 7, or 2 years. Because of what? Immunity and all the strings of political parties around it. But individual, if you allow them to run for election in local government as an independent candidate with no immunity whatsoever to the chairman or anybody there, I think they will do well. Corruption will be reduced.
Thank you very much, sir. Let me move to Mr. Odejiji. Can you hear me? Mr. Mwigwe?
I can hear you loud and clear.
All right. Now, we all believe that the Supreme Court judgment is a positive thing. But we also believe that it is not enough. There still needs to be things to be done in order to back it up, to strengthen it. So for you, what do you think are the legislative strategies that can be put in place in order to build up on this judgment? Well, at the national level and also at the state level.
Well, let me begin at the state level. Taking my local government as an example, what I would like to do if I have the opportunity to add flavor to what the Supreme Court have done. I think that every local government will celebrate this liberation that has given them, according to what the last speaker have just said. He said virtually everything, but most of the things he said possibly will pass through legislation before it starts to work. And we need to go to work, to go to action almost immediately so that nobody will be shortchanged again. I think that the local government, starting from the very grassroots people, should come out and celebrate and thank President Tinubu for what he has done, and now begin to tell the world and the Nigerians that they want all this money that has been taken by the state governors, which has kept the local government, especially the grassroots interior places, not to know that Nigeria is into democracy. Because I can see various villages where when you go into that very place today, you begin to wonder, was there any government in this place at all? Yet, we have a government that runs, but a government does not run only in the cities or in the capitals where the governors have every right, like the last speaker said, with immunity to do all the atrocities they've done with our money. And if you ask me, this money that they've been using without permission or without taking the legal processes has amounted to trillions of dollars. So we shouldn't allow it to go that way. So I would be of the opinion that there should be a kind of protest, peaceful protest by the masses coming out to tell that all those governors that has used this money in the past, because I think it is just the interpretation of our constitution that the Supreme Court made. The law has been there, but they've chosen to violate it. And for those who have violated all those constitutions, possibly do not have any right to vie for any public office again until they refund all that they've taken from the grassroots. So that is my suggestion for now. And I will also say that on the appointment of caretaker committees, that something has to be done. I am aware that the state governors are having meetings on how to hold on to what has been given to them, what they have done, without actually coming down on these caretaker committees and possibly do the right thing. That we must come up with ideas that will make them to do it almost immediately, because the law is made, and once a law is given ruling on, it becomes a law almost immediately. So those are the areas I will want us to look into and see how we can advise the local government to actually take up what belongs to them. Again, is that the person who spoke before the last person now said that we will wait until the election of local government is done. I don't think it's right. But if that's what the law says, we may begin to now pressurize the state government or the state legislators to do the local government election as soon as possible. That's my view. Thank you.
All right. Now, Mr. Moneke, the monarch is a symbol of traditional authority. Therefore, it derives traditional legitimacy. You believe that? Now, if yes, do you see any possibility of corrupt and influential politicians at the local level using this privilege to financially sway traditional rulers within its jurisdiction in such a manner that a given political party, despite being notorious in that area, will continue to hold power because he knows the monarchs or authorities within that area. Do you see any possibility of that?
Yes. Before I answer this question, let me just comment on what has been said. The law I mean, the decision of the Supreme Court said that you are not going to give money to local government, which is not democratically elected. That is what the Constitution says. So if you refuse to continue to use caretaker, then there'll be no money for that local government. Coming to your decision on whether politicians can influence monarchs, like I said earlier, we don't have monarchs. We use that word, monarchs. You know, what we have are traditional rulers. They are not monarchs because they don't have the power. The Constitution does not even give them any power. That they have this, they can do that, they do that. No. So you cannot be talking of a monarch. Monarchy is a form of government, and every monarch performs state functions, whether it's ceremonial or anything, but there must be a state function which that monarch is a form of government. Now, you see, the governor of Anambra State said that sometimes say that some monarchs are even corrupt. When you say this, corruption is not only with the state, with the governors. Some monarchs are corrupt. I see some monarchs that sell chieftaincy titles to people. They ask you how much you pay and they give it to you. Chieftaincy, this title, something became so prevalent when we had 419 people and drug barons, when they were reigning at that time. But it has continued. People now do them. So now, is that not a form of corruption? If you have to pay money before you are recognized in the community, people who contribute to the community may not be recognized because they don't want to give money. But those that are ready to, some charlatans that are ready to bring money, no matter how gotten, are recognized. So the point there is that I don't want you to be using monarchs because we don't have monarchs in Nigeria. We have traditional rulers. But I do not believe, again, that any traditional ruler that is what is onions will allow himself to be pushed about by politicians, especially when you say that these people derive their power from more or less from the source. The power grows from inside. It's not the one that like that of the governor or the president or anything that has tenure. Their power derives. But again, you see where governors are giving powers to dethrone them based on his whims and caprices, and it can be abused. But any traditional ruler that is principled will do the correct thing at any time, no matter, and he will not, as much as possible, whoever is a traditional ruler must insulate himself from politics, because it's they are dabbling into politics that creates problems for them, and of course allows politicians to use them anyhow.
All right. Let me come back to you, Chief Onwa. Can you hear me, Chief Onwa? Unmute your audio. All right.
Yes, sir.
So, Chief Onwa, with the state governments, yes, despite this judgment, the state governments still wield power over their own independent electoral position. So do you think that the state government still have there is enough bearing, influence on the local government despite this judgment?
Respectfully, sir, I feel we are missing the gist. The gist is that the governors are not from out of space. The governors became governors because under the Nigeria Constitution, they were sponsored by a political party. The governors became what they have become because Nigerians are indolent. We, the people, elected our representatives that will do oversight and make laws for good governance in our state parishes. But because we do not have crusaders, we do not have citizens that understand the conditions necessary for democratic process, we were looking at people who will do the right thing. The only thing that will bring good governance is that the people understand the conditions of democracy. Illiterates do not operate in a democratic setting. We need agitators, we need litigants, we need those who will crusade for causes. We need those who will make money available for those who are ready to fight for freedom. Nigerians do not make demand on the system. I have listened to the conversation. I had a judgment of the Federal High Court in 2006 ensuring my right to become a councillor in Idemili South. That is a right ensured to me by both the African Charter and Nigerian Constitution. I went to court to challenge the government of Christopher Ngige that he has not set the machinery necessary for me to actualize my dream within the confines of Section 8 of a Nigerian Constitution. It was a judgment of a Federal High Court. The Honorable Attorney General of the Federation came from Abuja, fought that case. Glory be to an erudite judge, Alawa, that gave judgment, and that judgment has never been appealed. He even awarded me 5 million naira for the violation of my right to participate in my domestic government. How many people in Anambra State were awake to activate the machinery to enforce their rights? I was paid that 5 million naira. That was the basis that nullified that the members of the parliament have no power to make laws for the appointment of caretaker. This is a very technical area. It's not for all people to talk about. That judgment is alive and well. If you have no power to make laws about caretaker, can you amend and do anything? But Anambra people were busy, not looking for good government. They are waiting for angels to perform. This judgment is a judgment of the Federal High Court of Nigeria. It's not a state government. In the face of that judgment, Peter Obi came to power, continued to violate that judgment. His predecessor, the successor came to power, continued to violate that judgment. Professor Chukwu Masolodo is on the same pit violating the judgment. I got agitated. I went back to Federal High Court to activate the machinery of making demand in the system. You don't make demand in your power or by demonstration. You make demand by agitating for good governance. It costs money. It needs legal expertise. You litigate for freedom. That matter is what activated what you see that is happening today. I served the Honorable Attorney General of the Federation, and they were woken up that there was a judgment of Federal High Court that has pronounced on what the Supreme Court gave their blessing yesterday. Glory be to Alagwaje. He is erudite that confirmation, there's nothing new that the Supreme Court added other than making some directing orders that federal government should stop giving money to the local governments that were not democratically elected. This is the government. We have to wake up. The citizens have a right. You don't wait for councillors. You don't wait for council to go to court and demand for account. I have gone to court to demand for account from Christopher Ngige, Peter Obi, the past governor of Anambra, and then from Chukwumatu, and all the agents who represented them. This is a landmark case that will be a springboard for people to go back and begin to bring action against all our past governors from 1999. The interpretation given by the Supreme Court is an organic interpretation. You have a right to make a demand on the system. And that is the only way we can take back our communities and the leadership. And then good men will combine to come and give service to the people. It is not a question of dancing around. I'm so sorry, sir.
If Showemi wants to talk about the power of the Supreme Court.
The power of the Supreme Court has been exercised. The judgment is enforceable by any Nigerian in any level of court in Nigeria. It is a judgment that you don't need any further reactivation. All you need to do is you don't even go to court and meet the registrars of court that on basis of this judgment, I want to ask for account. You begin from there.
All right.
Now, so it's not a question of waiting for counsel. The issue in Nigeria is that democracy requires knowledgeable citizens. Democracy.
Your point. Let's allow Chief Showemi to speak.
I'm so sorry, sir. So sorry, sir.
Thank you. The last speaker spoke excessively on what he has done, which is very commendable. We cannot get the best out of our constitution if we are not ready to test everything up to the Supreme Court. If we stop at so many things could have changed in Nigeria if we didn't stop at the Federal High Court. If you lose a case at the federal, you go to Court of Appeal. From Court of Appeal, you go to Supreme Court. Then it becomes a precedent that has to be followed. It also requires active participation by citizens like Mr. Dr. Unobi on what you have done, which is commendable. And many things, that is how America fine-tunes most of their system. They test everything. The Constitution, when it was written in 1789, was not perfect. Some amendments took place, and it's still going on. It's an ongoing process. Democracy is not something you just write the Constitution, you go and sit down. You'll be looking at all the fine prints, everything that can be done to make it work. And that's what was done yesterday with that Supreme Court statement, so that it can be clearer. Because so many people can interpret the Constitution in so many ways. But when the Supreme Court now says this is the way it's supposed to be done, and you have a willing president that we must always be, we can't say because we voted for him or because we love him, we just allow him to just derail us. No, we have to call him to order every minute. Not that we hate him or we don't like him or we didn't vote for him. What must be primary to us is the love of our country. That's the best for Nigeria at all times. But if the Supreme Court that we have is unable to listen to us to interpret the Constitution the way it's supposed to be interpreted, like I said before, the Supreme Court judgment now expose the local government. For example, I'll give an example in Ogun State, my own state in Ogun State. Some local government chairmen, when they went to the governor to talk about the allocation that was being diverted, they did it by prostrating. They were prostrating. They double it, like Yoruba would say, they were on their floor, begging the governor to give them the allocation. And the man, the chairperson, the head of the group that led them to meet the governor, they sent him away from the party in Ogun State just about 7 months ago. If you can Google it, you will find it there. This is how powerful the governors are. And another thing that must be dismantled is that Ministry of Local Government. The Ministry of Local Government in each of the states must be removed so that they don't have anything to do with what is going on, in addition to independent candidates running for office. Because those governors, they are the head of the political party in their state. If you allow them to run, if you run for election in local government under their party, you are still under them. They will destroy your political career and you can't grow. So we need something that will totally free the local government through the pronouncement of the Supreme Court. Supreme Court needs to go, they need to go further. They need to go further in explaining or explanation of the Constitution, what the governor and the state and the local government must do and must not do, so that any governor that they found to have interfered into the affairs of the local government should lose that stupid immunity. There is no immunity for a governor in America here. There's no immunity for a governor in America. We don't need a governor that has immunity. That's why they are corrupt. And like Senator, the former governor of what they call it, of Edo State, the now senator, a former Labour leader, Adam Oshiomhole, he said it. There is no. Former vice president, there is no consequence for anything you do in Nigeria. You know, if you are corrupt, the case will go to court. They will adjourn it for 2 years or 3 years, or ask you to pay a bail of about 50 million for a crime of 50 or 5 billion. And what happened? They put the case away. After some time, nobody will even remember it because somebody else will have committed a stronger crime than your own. And so nobody will remember your own anymore. And that's why we don't have consequence for anything we do in this country. But the beauty of the judgment of the Supreme Court was that the chairman of the local government does not enjoy any immunity. And EFCC can go after that person. So that will probably be the only thing I can take away from that judgment. Thank you very much.
All right. Mr. Mwikwe, are you reacting to any statement here? Just briefly, please.
Well, briefly, all I'm saying that the last speaker and all of us that have spoken have done well to this very, the judgment given by the Supreme Court. But I want to actually go back to what Onwa Ifeanyi Okonkwo said. He did a proper explanation on what he has done. The question I want to ask now, with that judgment he has gotten at that very time, is there anything that we, at this very present time, that the final judgment, no way, nobody is going to argue that one now has been given? Is there anything that we can do to pursue this thing in line of what he has done and be able to get all these past governors that have abused this very money to come back from wherever they are, to begin to cough out what they've taken from us? And again, I agree with this idea that local government, whatever, shouldn't be under party affiliation, because that's where corruption comes back again. And if there is no immunity on them, they can't afford to be corrupt, because whoever that is corrupting them will go to jail. So can we take on this Ifeanyi Okonkwo's explanation and what he has done and what democracy is all about? Can we take it on? I mean, possibly to use it to round up if there are still time for us, so that we that are from behind, we know exactly what we do to be able to make use of this Supreme Court order. Otherwise, to me, it will be nonsense. We have to make use of it by going back to get those people who actually have defrauded us, because they know what the law says. They have attorney generals who would have advised them, and yet they did it with all impunity and nothing happened. So that's all I want to contribute. Let's see how it goes.
All right. Your contribution is very instructive. Those who have looted, who have disobeyed the Constitution all along, what has become of them? How can the government retrieve all the they have stolen. So I think that question was thrown to Chief Onwa. Are you responding to the question?
Yes, sir. I can throw some light, sir.
But briefly, please, because we are not with time any longer. Continue. We can't hear you. We can't hear you, sir. Unmute your audio.
Is he muted again?
Ah. All right. All right.
Can you hear me now, sir?
Of course. Yes. Pick up. It is muted again, sir.
What's happening?
Hello?
I can hear you. I can hear you now.
Yes, sir. A judgment of the court on the interpretation of the provisions of a statute is not a private property. It can be used by anybody as a foundation to find your rights. So the issue of corruption and this, the political parties in Nigeria are sleeping. The members of the political parties are not interested in activating the machinery for good governance. Tinubu have done what he's doing, but we citizens must participate. Democracy has length, it has breadth, it has depth, it has intellectual, it has litigation, it has all kinds of things to make it work. You must define on which field you will play. Nigerians will wake up, use the judgment of the Supreme Court to demand their right. All these people that have been in power from 1999, this interpretation of the Constitution does not mean it is going to take effect only from today. It is the interpretation of our ground law by the Supreme Authority that has the power to do so. So it's something that can help us to clean up the system. Thank you, sir.
All right. You've had a wonderful conversation, but I want to have final thoughts of each of everyone here. Mr. Augustine, what's your thought, your final thoughts?
Hello,
I can't
sir.
hear you.
Can you hear me? Oh, no. Sorry, sir.
Oh,
I mean, Mr. Augustine Moneke.
You are hearing me now?
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes. My thought on what we're discussing is that the judgment is good and it's worth celebrating. And we thank all that made it possible. We do hope that the local government will focus on that judgment. We take it up from there. We do hope that the citizens have advanced on at this point know their responsibilities. We cannot talk of development without looking at it holistically. Citizens need to sit up. They are too complacent for my liking. It's not just the people you see. It's affecting everybody. But, a participant here, I mean, one of the discussants, that it's like they're waiting for Nigerians wait for them to come down and do what they ought to do on their own. I think we need better. And finally, I must commend everybody who has. But I must commend the Supreme Court just doing what is right. And for if I know Okonkwo, I want to know, I normally see and read, his struggles in the newspapers, and I'm seeing him, for the first time. I must commend you for the work you have done for this country. I do hope that history chronicle these things and have a very good place, you don't work for this country. And
all right. Chief Maduki, for your final thought, please.
Yeah, thank you very much. First, I'd like to thank you for asking me to come. And secondly, for having a kind of decorous discussion, which I have learned more myself. Let me just say, arising from the discussion we've had, that I will summarize by saying there's work to do, and that work is centered around the House of Assembly. The important thing is, at the end of the day, is that we should have local governments in place. And whether we have local governments that can look for their money that is lost, quote and unquote, or not, whether those local governments arise from individual context, that's independent candidates, which has not been tested in this Fourth Republic, or they arise from political parties, it will all come from the activism we show at the State House of Assembly, which I must confess, on a sad note, is currently under the control of governors instead of checking them. So these are areas where we see more work. And finally, let me touch an area that has not come up in this discussion at all, but I know that as we go forward, it will come up. Some people have said that the State Independent Electoral Commission will stay off and INEC will conduct the election. That's not in the spirit of federalism. And we cannot be approbating and reprobating. INEC itself is not perfect. All we need to do is to get our constitutional organs as it relates to the State Independent Electoral Commission, put the necessary checks on them, again, through the legislation at the State Assembly, and make sure that the elections are clean and clear. The central logistics that INEC has to deal with raises the cost of our elections. So there is nothing that is wrong in principle with having State Independent Electoral Commission. It is just the operation. On that note, I want to say thank you very much, and let's keep this discussion serial and going as part of the activity.
I appreciate your contribution. Chief Showemi, your final thoughts.
Thank you so much for this discussion and everybody that has participated in it. The last speaker mentioned something about in INEC or at the state level. If we cannot trust the INEC at the state and at federal level, why don't we have something like that at the local government level, so that they can run their election themselves, independent of the state government? Otherwise, the state government will still make sure that everybody that is going to win that election at the local government, and they are responsible to the local to the state government. And I'm still going to say here, the state, we still need more than just this little freedom for the local government. We need to have what is called incorporation of all the cities or all the towns in a local government in such a way that each city will have a secretary. And that secretary will be able to organize so many things that will influence the local government election in the states. That's how they do it here in America. So you see, we want to enjoy this spirit of democracy, but we don't want to go down the lane, the foundation of it. We are just taking it at the surface. You understand? We need to go down to what we call city police. Because the city police will now manage the laws that will be passed by the local government. If we don't have all those things in place, we want to have a state police, which is what they are asking for now, police to manage the affairs of the state. So when the local government passes a law that the governor of the state does not recognize, the police will ignore it. It's the same thing that we're having at the federal level. That's why Boko Haram or people who are killing people in the east or in the west or in the something, they get away with so many things because the federal police does not show interest in getting to them. So when we have state police, which we are all fighting for now, you know what's going to happen? The state police will only implement the law that the state governor recognizes, not what the state government wants. I wrote a book called The Vultures and the Vulnerable. Inside that book is a page on the state and the city police on how we can do it. So we need to take it to the local government level, that every village or every town must be incorporated as an entity that can be managed and be accountable to the people. So we still have a long way to go. The Supreme Court the judgment is just the beginning. There is a way we still need to go down the lane to be able to get it done. Thank you very much.
I appreciate you, Chief Shoni. Mr. Wigwe, your final thought, please.
Yes, my final thought is just simple because it's like people have said it all. But I will always want to add that we must get Nigerians to sit up. What's happening in this country is that a lot of people are docile and uninterested with what is happening, provided he's still alive. But we know that life, that what's living has to have a quality. Once that quality of good living is not there, you're not living a life. So we must let our people understand that they will sit up. Can you imagine if President Tinubu did not have the courage to take this thing to the Supreme Court and possibly put in every weight of his to defend the grassroots? This thing would have been lingering. It would have been only Chibonga fighting for this thing from what he said since 2008. And yet nothing has been done.
APC went to court too.
Therefore, I will suggest that this forum will do another webinar or Zoom meeting like this. But this time, let's bring in a lot of people to let them know what democracy is all about. Because until you understand what democracy is all about, that is fraud and corruption is more in democracy if not properly controlled by the people who are supposed to be the leaders of that very government. Therefore, I would say I thank you all for what is done, but let us not stop here. Let us take it up until this thing now actually goes into action, because now it has not gone into action. I will tell you that the state governors will fight it. They will ignore most things. They will find a way to go to the court to delay some of these things, or be looking for a way to get it more interpreted so that they will finish their tenure with these local government funds. They've been shortchanging people. And if there is anything we can do to recall those who actually use this very money, knowing fully well that it is illegal, because if I can hear from Chifama that 2008 you got a judgment, and up till now, nothing has happened. Therefore, we need to do more. Thank you. And I'm very happy that you people was able to bring me into this thing. And thank you for everything.
All right, I appreciate it. And finally, Chief Omar, let's briefly say your final thoughts on this. Briefly, please. We can't hear you, Chief Omar. Unmute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. I must first of all, with humility, thank your organization and the participants in this program that is very strategic for democratic development of our country. I would thank the Honorable Attorney General and his team, the legal team that put it together. I will also thank myself for bringing it to their attention by my second suit in the Federal High Court in Oka coming up on Wednesday. I thank all the contributors. The judgment of the Supreme Court is a wake-up call for any Nigerian that is interested in good governance. The issue today in Nigeria is that Nigerians feel that the person you elected will deliver good governance to you. That is not correct. You must make the
All right, I think there is a little break. But just to end, it has been fantastic having all of you.
Demand must 5,000. I must thank you so much for the opportunity, sir.
All right, it is fantastic having an intellectual human resources like you people to come to air your views on this matter. I think what we all believe, what we all agree on is that this development is a good thing. But all we need to do is to build on it, because this is just the beginning of self-determination for our local governments. But we have to build on it in terms of legislative strategies and other things in order for it to be strengthened. So on this note, we call it a day. Thank you everyone for coming on this occasion.
Thank you.